Hey friends, so welcome to DBC Thursday Night Live. We have Lisa Johnson in the house tonight. Super excited to have her. And remember, as you are joining in, be sure and drop a comment over in the comment section. Every single comment will enter you to win a free Creatively Productive book, which you don't want to miss out on this. This is a great book. I love this book so much. And Lisa, before we dive in too much, and as you are joining in, please tell us who you are, where you're from, what you do. Tell us something good that happened today or this week. And Lisa, go ahead and share a little bit about who you are, what you do. And they know you're the author of Creatively Productive, but tell us a little more about you.
Yeah. So I always get this question and I'm always like, I don't even know where to start. Like, do you want to go back to high school? Do you want to talk about college? Like, what do you want to
Who am I?
So I'm a mom of two boys. I have a high schooler this year, which is like absolutely insane. And then I have a seventh grader. And last year, and I've started talking about this, and I know you talk about SPD and things like that. So last year, I was diagnosed with ASD, which is ASD level 1, which is basically Asperger's, or what Asperger's used to be known as. And my son is also on the spectrum. And I had a pretty severe burnout, which I imagine that many people can relate to in a lot of ways. And I really wasn't practicing self-care or taking care of myself or anything. I was really just kind of pushing far too hard, and a lot of things just kind of came to an head. So for the past 10, 15, I've been in education for like 20 years now, but the past 10 years, I've been working as an ed tech here in Austin at a 1-1 iPad high school. And this past year, this May, I resigned and just said, I need, and nothing against them or nothing against, working at all, because I loved it, but I needed to focus on my health. And I still have some pending health sort of issues. So I've been doing some freelance stuff and things like that, but my focus has always been on, autism advocacy, talking about that, talking about my own experiences, talking about executive functioning skills, which really, interestingly enough, because I have all these stacked over here, I mean, this really is executive functioning skills.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I didn't know that I was on the spectrum when I was writing this, but really, if you look at all of the things like digital organization and time management and, reflection and all of those things, those all are social emotional learning, and they're all kind of followed, within the executive functioning skills. So yeah, that's a long intro, but yeah.
No, I love it. And I think it's good for people to realize, there's so many of us that there's quite a few that we've had on the show that actually are taking a year off or a year away from the classroom, if you will. They're still doing teaching, they're still doing professional development and all kinds of different things. And teaching can look in so many ways. There's so many ways that we can use our skills as educators. And I think that's really important to share for all out there, and it's important too to take your health seriously. I mean, we only have one life. We only get one chance at this. So we got to take it serious. It's good to see you guys. Amy, Kristen, thanks for joining us tonight. Yeah, so creatively productive, like you just said, I mean, there are executive functioning skills in there. I love it. I think it's so right. That describes it beautifully. But I would love for you just to describe a little more about what you're hoping the readers gained from that book. Someone's going to win that book. Either that is listening now or listening on the playback. Remember, we do choose our winners on Friday to give moms that are putting their babies to bed a chance to watch this when they have some free time or listen on their way to work. So tell us a little bit about why you wrote Creatively Productive and what you were hoping the readers gain from it.
Sure. So, I just finished my first book, and, I was like, there's more that I need to say. Like, I've talked about, college and career readiness skills in the first book. And yes, a lot of what Creatively Productive is college and career readiness skills, but it's a lot of executive functioning sort of in that. And, it started very simply. I actually had an ADD diagnosis, which, happened several years ago, long before I got my ASD diagnosis. And what I was finding, even for myself, is, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate, especially since, we weren't born into this technology world. And so what happened is, let's say 10 years ago, 11 years ago, the iPad came out, right? And everybody swung, really, really far. Like, let's do everything with technology. Check out all these apps. This is wonderful. We can do everything with this device. And while I love the iPad and I love all those things, like digital note taking all of the time for me, like if I decided to do like literally everything that I do, like all of my calendar, all of that, exclusively on a device, that's problematic for me. And most likely it's problematic for a lot of people. So I'm not anti-technology by any way. I'm an ed tech, but I do feel like you have to choose the right tool for you, but also the right tool for the job. And so that's really what Creatively Productive is about. It's kind of a collection of analog tools, digital tools, and like these are all of the things, these are things to consider. And especially with the time management stuff, because what might work for me may not work for somebody else. And even when I'm working with students, and staff and things like that, I have that very conversation. I was like, I'm going to show you 4 or 5 different tools. I'm going to tell you what they do. I'm going to talk to you about Google Keep. I'm going to talk to you about this PDF planner. I'm going to talk to you about, whatever other tools, Todoist and notes and writing on your hand, whatever it is. And you have to figure out what's going to work best for you. And that's really important, to give kids the autonomy to choose those things and to understand that they do need to start figuring these things out, because these are life skills. Like being organized is, in some form or fashion is a life skill. Time management is a life skill. Being able to take notes, whether you're in a business meeting or you're at a professional development or you're in a classroom, like that's a skill. Same thing with a lot of the other things within the book. And so that's really what I felt really strongly about. I was like, I don't just want to talk about technology, and technology changes too, So, I mean, if you're putting out a book and you're just talking about one tool, or if you're, talking about, just those tools, and even, I've seen books that will have like step guides, which is fine. But by the time that gets published, a lot of those steps have even changed. And so I tried as best I could to ensure that the book was evergreen. Yes, it's teal, but I really wanted to make sure that everything that I'm sharing in there, is something that you can use now, and hopefully at least in the next, 5 to 7 years from now. And it's also something you can use with your students, but it's something that we use as well. I mean, I know you and I have talked about many different things, what tools do you use for this, or how do you organize your photos, or, just there's a variety of different things. So I think adults and, students, these are skills that we have to model and practice.
Totally. And I love within the book how you talk about intentionality and how, that's really how we become productive. We have to be intentional to make that a priority, right? Because, I mean, we can all say we want to be like productive, we want to be organized, we can talk about it for a really long time. But I love in the book, you give just very actionable steps of, here's just one way. And it makes you think of a billion different other ways that you could potentially do that. So, yeah, Creatively Productive is just that. It teaches you how to be productive. And recently, Lisa, I was talking to Dave on an interview on Instagram. We were talking about mental energy. And I know you had addressed a little bit about mental health at the onset of your intro. And it's just so important that we free up space inside our mind to be productive and to be creative, because honestly, if there's too much happening up there that's using up all of your energy, you feel like you've run a marathon, you've done nothing but think about a lot of things that are completely out of your control, or that you could control and you're choosing not to control, or maybe it's just a bunch of anxiety and things that are taking over. But regardless of what it is inside of your mind, if it's using up too much of your energy, you can't possibly be creative or productive. And our students, I think, are facing very similar issues where there's just too many things clouding their mind, and they need tools. They need ways to help them to get this stuff out, and resources to help them to sort these things out so they can actually become more productive or even be ready to learn in our classroom. So I think there's just so many ways to use the tools in Creatively Productive. It doesn't necessarily have to just be, for our work. It can be, a way of brainstorming to get thoughts out on paper so we can process them, look at them from a different lens, maybe outside of our body. Like, here's all the thoughts that are happening. Which of these can I actually control? Which of these should I actually consider thinking about? And what should I just dismiss so I can move on and be, go on about my life or do something that I need to do that's creative?
Well, and I think I want to mention two things because you brought up two things. I was like, oh, I want to address those both. So I think there's a big difference between being busy and being productive. And it does get into values, which I'll talk to you about, and like what your goals are and things like that. It's not just like I have 15 things to do today. Like my value is not laundry. Like I do it, and I can be busy doing it, but it's not like I don't consider myself necessarily productive because I'm doing the laundry, or whatever that is. But the other thing I wanted to mention is you were talking about it like brainstorming. And so really the entire book is designed to use with students, but obviously these skills are executive functioning skills. And so these are skills that, us as adults can obviously use and integrate and things like that. And one of them is there's kind of a brainstorm mind map to-do list. And so the idea is you just write down everything you need to do, but then you group it, or basically batch tasks, by what type of tasks they are. So for perfect example, I got a medical bill, an unexpected medical bill in the mail yesterday. And so, anytime I have phone calls, because I don't love, calling insurance and then calling, somebody else and then calling them. So I try to batch all of those tasks together. So like anytime if I have to make a doctor's appointment or call about a bill or, schedule, an immunization, whatever it is, I try to kind of do all of those at the same time. It's the same thing. Like you might have 4 different emails, that all are very different, but it's all email. Or it might be like, I'm going to do all my errands. It wouldn't make sense to go do one errand, come home, go do another errand, come home, unless you're doing like groceries or something like that. And so batching tasks just allows your mental energy all to be focused on the same type of task. And that's why, if I'm doing a creative task, I try to kind of do all of those together. Or I know like a certain time of day, I talk about this too. There's certain times of days where I just have more energy. Typically like in the morning, I've had my caffeine, I'm good to go. That's a good time for me. But 2:00 in the afternoon, not a good time for me. So, and I've talked to students about this too. It's like, when are you most awake? Is it when you get home right after school, or is it after dinner? Like, think about these things. You might want to not do your homework. If you're spending 3 hours doing something that really should only take you an hour because you're so tired or you're fried or whatever it is, be aware of that and adjust your schedule as you can. Obviously, we can't all adjust our schedules, completely, but there are things that we can do.
No, I love that. So I hear a couple of things, like I have a to-do list. I still do old-fashioned to-do lists like this.
Oh, I totally do.
And each day I flip it over, and then I like to look back for the week and see all the things that I did. But I love the idea of batching them. And I haven't been doing that recently. I will star like the things that are most important I need to do, but in my head I kind of batch them. But I love the idea of maybe just organizing. I do that when I go to the grocery store. All my produce is up together.
Yeah, you would go to dairy and then go over here and
right.
then go over
here. I put my list the way that I'm going to shop in that grocery store, but I need to do that with our to-do list. I mean, why not? And then I love so one, batching them, but then 2, I heard you say putting time frames on them, which I really like, because I'm most productive between 5 a.m. and like 9 a.m. That's like my really creative mind time.
Like your sweet spot.
That is the sweet spot, because everybody's busy. It's quiet around. Like Daryl's working out, Caleb's at work. Like I'm by myself and I have a lot of time. So I really need to organize, like the emails probably should go a little later. And some of my creative tasks should probably go in the earlier morning. And so in my head, I'm thinking not only do I want to batch my to-do list for tomorrow, but I kind of want to put some time frames on it and kind of like think of it like the grocery store. Like I'm gonna do my creative stuff first because I'm way more awake and alert at that moment. And then my emails could come second because that's about when people are waking up anyway. So I can send those then instead of, I always do emails first. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do emails.
And then you don't do anything else after.
No, I definitely don't want to do my creative stuff when I save it for last, you know? So I love this idea of not only doing this for myself, but also teaching students, you know, find when's your sweet spot. When is your sweet spot? And that's when we need to put those things that, you know, that involve more energy or that involve more detail, attention to detail. Like mine is graphic design. So of course I need to pay attention to detail during that time. So I need to put that in my most alert time. Yeah, I'm really excited about this.
Well, and I'll tell you one other thing. So there's one I always like to talk about, like the fudge factor sort of thing. And you know, I talk about it with students as well. And so a lot of times we mentally estimate how much something is going to take us or how long it's going to take us. And then sometimes we avoid that task because we think it's going to take too long.
Right.
And so, you know, you can do this with students, but obviously, you know, I've done this before too. And it's just keeping like a little table and saying, okay, so for example, reading a chapter, how long do I think it's going to take? How long does it actually take? You know, or editing this paper. Oh, I don't want to edit the paper. It's going to take me 3 hours. Well, in reality, it may only take you 30 minutes. But if you think it's going to take you 3 hours, you're not going to do it.
Right.
And so it also allows students, and myself included, like vacuuming. Like I hate vacuuming. And I'm like, oh, it's going to take me an hour and a half. Like it takes me 20 minutes. Like it doesn't take long at all to do. So, you know, being aware of when you're looking at not only like what time of day is a good time of day to do something and kind of, you know, putting those tasks together, but also it helps you be more realistic with how long things actually take you. And that's really important for students because once they have that idea, okay, actually my math homework only typically takes me 15 minutes, like, or 30 minutes or whatever. And I'm freaking out over it because I think it's going to take me 3 hours and it doesn't.
Yeah.
So just being aware of that and being able to adjust that and look at it and go, oh, you know, I wasn't doing this because I thought it was going to take this long. It actually only took this long. You do that a few times. It's an easy thing.
That's a really great point. I think there's a lot of times where I'm like, I don't want to do the newsletter. The newsletter just takes too long. And then it's like not really that long. And like it's basically like copy paste, you know, the structure and then change up the content. I'm like, man, why do I put this off? Or you finally clean your house, right? You're like, this is going to take me so long. You finally do it. And you're like, I love this so much. And it really didn't take that long. If this makes me feel this good, why didn't I do it sooner? It's so funny. It's really true though. I think that's a great idea. Like, so for one, I hear a couple of things like batching the list, putting times by the list, and then anything you're just wanting to avoid because you're afraid it's going to take too long, put the little time frame, how long it actually took you in the parentheses. The next time you make that list, you're like, oh, it's not really going to take that long. I'm gonna put it in the early morning because I can get that done really quick.
And if you're actually scheduling things on Google Calendar, then you have like, you know, okay, I'm not blocking off 2 hours to do this. I'm only blocking off an hour. I mean, give yourself some buffer time, but
yeah,
you're not like clearing your entire morning, or maybe you are clearing your entire morning and then you have like more time to do something else. I don't know.
Just go hang out, read a book. I like that idea too. And well, it's just all about, you know, organization. And one of the things, there was a quote inside, man, I wish I had it pulled up right now because I want to say it right now. I'm gonna let you talk for just a second. I'm gonna pull up this quote that I love from Creatively Productive. But you talk a little bit about it being super intentional. I'm going to find the quote though. I have it.
You'll find it. Yes.
I'll let you talk for a minute.
I mean, I think everything I do, I try to make sure that there's a purpose and intention to it. I think even talking about values and goal setting and all of that, you know, before you set goals, you need to look at what your values are. So you're intentional with the goals that you set, because sometimes we do a goal setting activity with kids or ourselves before we really do like a values audit, which I talk about in chapter 4. And I've got, you know, a bunch of templates and things like that for it. But, you know, for me, one of my values, and I talk about in the book, is creativity, and it's also communication and things like that. And so if those are my values and I'm not setting goals that don't include them in some way, that's a problem. If you have a student who's super, into volunteering and altruism, and they set all these goals, but they don't have any, and I'm saying life, personal type, family goals, but they don't include any of that in there, there's going to be a disconnect. And so I think that's why it's so important to be so purposeful and intentional with those practices, especially as we go into a new year. It's kind of a nice way to, it's not just like a New Year's resolution, I'm not going to drink Diet Coke anymore or whatever that is. But, it's like, my values are, my being emotionally healthy. What are those goals look like? Or, one of my values is being creative, or one of my values is having, authentic family time. What are my goals around that? Ooh.
Yeah. Your quote in here was a goals quote, actually. It's, if our goals are not visible, then we easily lose sight of them. And I think that's what I was thinking about when I was thinking about intentionality, is that you have to actually put it down. And I think that's what we were talking about on our list and managing our list. I mean, it's one thing to make a big, ginormous list and then you don't check a thing off. That's really frustrating at the end of the week or whenever you're planning to have that done. But if you are intentional and you put it down, it doesn't become invisible because it's in front of you and it's very tangible. Like, you don't lose sight of it, as you said in your quote. When our goals are not visible, we easily lose sight of them. When our tasks are not right here so we can see and manage them, it's easy to be like, oh, well,
I don't know what I'm doing today.
Bummer. But that's how we don't become as productive as we wish we could, and it's really, those are things that are actually within our control. I mean, I think too often we're like, oh, I'm just so busy. There's just too many things. No, the truth of the matter is we just need to figure out how to manage it in smaller doses so we can stay emotionally healthy and we can be creatively productive. We don't have to choose either or. We can actually do both.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head too, about a lot of times there's things on my list, and especially if I have, so I'll have, more on my list than I can ever complete in a week. And then it just, migrates to the next week.
Yeah.
But, if there's something on that list that's migrated 2 or 3, 4 weeks over, I have to decide, is that really something that needs to be done? Is it just kind of a nice to have? Why am I listing it over and over and over again? Yeah. And is it something I need for work? Is it something I need for the kids? Or is it just something I'd like to do, but clearly I don't actually want to do it. And it's, cluttering and taking away from, productivity and my focus on other things. So just documenting that stuff is really, really helpful.
I agree. I love everything that we talked about tonight. And I hope that some of you have gained some ideas. I see Sean over here, Lisa joining us. We have a few in the house tonight. Yeah, I would love to hear how you guys stay creatively productive. If you're listening to this on the playback, drop those in the comments. And somebody is going to win the book, so that'll help you even more. But Lisa, I know once they dive into the book or they try some of these ideas of batching and putting some time frames and finding their sweet spot and really just kind of honing in their productivity, they're going to want to connect with you. So how can they connect with you?
Sure. Well, first of all, my website is www.tech, and then you can kind of see it there, tech, TECHCHEF, 4 letter U.com. I know you're just talking about newsletters. So I have both a monthly newsletter. I do not spam people. I just send it out once a month, and like you, Tara, it was that's enough for me. It's a lot to put together a newsletter. So I have the website. It has tons of blog posts there. If you go to the techchefforyou.com and you click on the books link, it'll not only have Creatively Productive, it'll have a link to a companion site for Creatively Productive, and it actually blocks off each of the chapters. So chapter 1 is on this, chapter 2 is on this, and it gives you links to blog posts that I've written either about what I've shared with students or just some of the tools. And then you'll also get access to the dock locker, which, you know, in the book, because I'm highly visual, I have a lot of, you know, examples and different templates. Like this one right here is a values audit, which is kind of hard to see, but I have all of these. They're not just, you know, in the book. They are available as, you know, if you have a MacBook, they're available as numbers and Keynote and pages, depending on what it was. And then they're also available in Google Sheets and Google Docs and Google Slides. So they're fully editable. So it's not just, it's kind of a living, breathing resource.
I love it. And you are full, her website, y'all, techchefforyou.com is definitely a place you want to go and visit. There's so many things there for your students and for you that's easy to implement right in your classroom tomorrow. Like literally, you can just take it and use it tomorrow. Absolutely. And I love that Kristen said here, you know, she likes to sort her to-do list, write them on Fridays, and empties her brain to free up for the weekend and ready for Monday. It's a great tip. Kristen, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, any other tips that you guys want to drop over in the comments, do drop them. We will check them out later. And we really appreciate you joining us, Lisa. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It was awesome. Bye, everyone. Have a good week. We'll see you next week. Same place, same time, different guests.
All right. Thanks, Tara. Thanks, DBC family. And have a great week.
Bye, everyone.